Ponytails. Read by Scribbler. You Don't Remember by Regidar. There are many nice ways to spend a morning. You could have brunch with your friends. You could sleep in. You could celebrate your survival of an assassination attempt. Or you could wake up early and watch the sunrise over a nice mug of cocoa. Unfortunately, there are many not so nice ways to spend your morning, and Apple Bloom was experiencing one of the most terrible ways of all. She was laying down next to one of her friends, Sweetie Belle, in a small field not too far away from Ponyville, going over the tragic event that had just occurred in both of their lives. Yesterday, their friend Scootaloo had attempted to hang herself. It is unimaginably horrible when a friend decides that their life is not worth living anymore. However, it is even more horrible when you are left with the feeling that you could have done something to stop the event from unfolding. Apple Bloom and Sweetie Belle had known of the problem that led to Scootaloo's eventual attempt. What they didn't know was just how poor of a state she was in. They had even been on their way to get her help, but it was too late when they arrived at her home. It is a terrible feeling, knowing that you have failed. It is an even worse feeling knowing you have failed a friend, especially on such a level. Apple Bloom and Sweetie Belle had gone home that day, excused from the rest of school by cheerily due to the nature of the event, and had spent the rest of the daylight hours sinking deeper into a despair that had been brewing for 10 months prior to their indoctrination into said despair. They did not fare very well the next morning either. They were still allowed a leave of absence from the school, so the two had met earlier that morning to talk over what had just transpired. At least, that is what they set out to do. Neither did much talking. Eventually, they had wandered to a field outside of Ponyville, close to Sweet Apple Acres, but far enough away to be left alone. They laid down in the tall grass, patches of wildflowers scattered about here and there, and watched the sky in silence. Time passed. The silence grew between the two, until it was shattered abruptly by Apple Bloom, as if some pony had thrown a stone into a still pond.
"Do you think we could have stopped it?"
she asked, her voice quiet. Sweetie Belle didn't answer her. It is very hard to answer questions that ask a lot of you, such as when some pony asks you to donate an organ, or to make them a type of soup which you don't know how to cook. Both of these fillies were still far too young to have to go through what they were dealing with, so it is very reasonable that Sweetie Belle decided to postpone her answer. The two stared up at the sky for some time, before Apple Bloom spoke once more.
"I just want to forget about it."
Sweetie Belle cast a glance over at her friend.
"Me too."
When you were very small, assuming your parents were decent beings and were not eaten by bears, you were taught that you can't always get what you want. You couldn't always have the extra cookie, sleep over at your friend's house, or get the transplant that could have improved your living standard significantly. However, this saying also carries on into a more figurative statement. It has generally come to mean that you can't have the impossible thing that you want. Indeed, this is true in most cases. In fact, it is true in nearly every case. Once in a million times, however, through an extraordinary connection of events, you can get what you want, even if it is impossible.
"I know we could have done something,"
Sweetie Belle told Apple Bloom.
"if we had more time. We didn't have more time though, so..."
She trailed off. Apple Bloom nodded her head as if she understood, but her heart wasn't in it. Not to mention, she wasn't completely sold on the idea that the only factor missing here was the time between events. Sweetie Belle rolled off the grass and got to her hooves. Looking down at Apple Bloom, whose expression of quiet sadness had not changed, she asked another question.
Is there anything you think we could have done to stop it?
I don't know.
Answered Apple Bloom.
That's why I asked you. I guess, but...
But?
Apple Bloom took a deep breath.
Well, we had 10 months, and we didn't see anything bad happen in the school until the very end, when we accidentally learned about it. Our bad friends were not figuring it out sooner.
When you are in times of trouble, your emotions do very odd things. These odd things are known as the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, sadness, and acceptance. I believe that this is wrong. There are more than just 5. There are thousands of different emotions, and combinations of several emotions, and overlapping emotions. For the sake of simplicity, I shall only tack on one more emotion: confusion. When something bad happens, immediately afterwards you are left in a somewhat dazed state, confused as to what is going on. From there you jump into denial, then anger, and so forth, with all of the other confusing emotions that are not listed. Sweetie Belle and Apple Bloom were both just about finished with their overlapping of the confusion and denial stage, and were ready to move on to the next one.
There wasn't anything we could have done.
Sweetie Belle finally decided.
I mean, we couldn't have known anything. It was Scooter's fault for not telling us.
Yeah, she's the one who just kept quiet about it. Why don't you tell Anna Pole she needs help? Why don't you wait for us to come and get her? Why'd you have to
The poor filly couldn't bear to finish the word, as the realization of what she was saying and what had happened truly dawned on her. Judging by the look on Sweetie Belle's face, it had dawned on her too.
It wasn't her fault. Not after what happened to her.
Apple Bloom whispered. Sweetie Belle nodded. Screwing up her eyes and stomping her hoof, tears began to force their way down her face. Sparks of faint magic danced over her horn as she did this, further emphasizing her frustration. I'm sure I don't need to tell you how unicorns' magic reacts when they are experiencing strong emotion. However, Apple Bloom didn't know this was a common thing for emotionally distressed unicorns to go through, and, like a certain now-deceased feline, let the curiosity get the better of her.
What's going on with your horn, Sweetie Belle?
She asked the sorrowful filly.
It always does this when I'm really upset or really excited.
Sweetie explained.
But that's not the point. The point is our friend just went through something absolutely horrible, and we blame her for what we did wrong.
She grit her teeth, the magic glowing a bit brighter.
I wish we could just forget it all.
I still do too.
Apple Bloom agreed solemnly. No matter how mature Apple Bloom could often act, she still had a filly-like fascination with strange things, as was appropriate due to her being a filly, and she slowly reached for her friend's flickering horn.
Sometimes I just wish it all just disappeared,
Sweetie Belle continued, her tears flowing freely now. Apple Bloom, who was nodding in agreement, suddenly darted her hoof forward to place it on her friend's horn. There was a magnificent flash of light, and Apple Bloom was blown back so hard that her hair bow actually came undone, letting her mane flop out everywhere. Tumbling in the grass, she grasped her hoof, expecting it to hurt. She was surprised when it didn't, although she didn't know why she was grasping it in the first place. She looked around.
How'd my hair bow get undone?
She wondered aloud, picking it back up in her mouth. Apple Bloom sat back on her haunches, wondering why she had decided to wander out into this meadow all by herself on a school day. That was You Don't Remember. It was written by Regidar and read by Scribbler with special guest voice actors Wish Lotus and Finn Forever. Okay, thank you very much for listening. This is far later than I intended to have this fic released. It's also not on the right microphone, so I apologise for sound quality, but it was a case of either I use the internal mic at this stage, or I try and go upstairs to get my proper mic, and one of the reasons why I'm late happens again. I'm late with this fic for 2 reasons. One, I managed to give myself heat stroke yesterday by being out too much in the sun, which it amazed me that that was even possible for me, because I usually stay out of the sun, and I'm sporting some very interesting bits of sunburn. I wasn't sunbathing, I was walking dogs and doing gardening, but apparently that was enough. So I was completely floopy-headed last night and fell asleep in various random places, and apparently it was a bit delusional. So it wasn't going to happen then. Today I intended to get everything out, and then the dog I'm pet-sitting and my actual dog had a bite, and I had to get in between them, and I am now sporting a brand new bite wound on my arm that is rather painful. Thankfully, apparently my tetanus from last year, when the last time this happened, is still active. But my mic is upstairs, and the dogs are now separated by a stairgate, and I do not wish to breach that barrier. So instead, internal mic it is. Short fic and a bit of a sad fic this week. Technically scooter fic, but scooter fic without Scootaloo. Seems to be a bit of a theme having Scootaloo stuff on my channel recently. Many thanks to Wish Lotus and Finn Forever, who have been incredibly patient. They sent me the lines for this quite a while ago, and it's taken me until now to get it sorted, because of various other different projects. In other news, I think I said a while back, I'm not sure if I said it here on YouTube, but I definitely said on my Finfiction channel, got YouTube on the brain, Finfiction portfolio? My Finfiction page, that I would be going to Buck. And it now looks like that not only will I be going to Buck, but I'm also going to be on the fanfiction panel, and one of the judges in the fanfiction contest. So, I have gone from never before attending a con to being a member of the con staff, which was a turn up for the books, and gratefully received. However, I do now owe Blue Shift a hug that is probably going to make both of us very, very embarrassed when I see him. Blue Shift, if you're listening, yeah, I owe you for this. I don't think I have anything of any worth or value to add at this precise moment in time, because I'm still a bit floopy-headed from the heat stroke, and my arm hurts like blazes. So I'm going to shut up now. Be lovely to each other, and good night, everybody.